Hi everyone. In this lesson, we're going to talk about problem solving related to equations that we've been solving. So our objective is to solve direct translation problems, relationships among unknown quantities, and consecutive integer problems. I provided some general problem solving strategies. Feel free to use these when you're working through these problems. Okay, so you want to make sure that you understand what the problem's asking for. Okay, so if you have to reread it a couple times, that's all right. Most of the time, you're going to be choosing a variable to represent the unknown. That's what we'll be looking for. At times, it's helpful to construct a drawing and then propose some type of solution and always check to make sure that it's correct. Okay, we may need to translate the problem into an equation, as you'll see in these examples. You're going to use your skills of solving equations to solve the equation that you create. And then you're going to interpret the results, so you can do that by writing your answer in a sentence. All right, let's take a look at this first problem here where it says twice a number added to 7 is the same as 3 subtracted from the number. And we need to find that number. So we're being asked to find a number. We don't know what that number is, so let's call that n. N for number. You can use x, y, z, it doesn't matter. Now we need to translate the problem into an equation. So twice a number added to 7. Twice, remember, means to multiply by 2. So 2 times that number, 2n, added to 7, means I'm just going to put plus 7. And then remember, when you see is the same as, think about what that means if we were to write an equation. Is the same as is another way of saying equals. So equals 3 subtracted from a number. So remember, we talked about when you have the word subtracted from, that phrase, that means you're going to reverse the way that it's written. So we won't put 3 minus x, we'll do, or n rather, we'll do n minus 3. Okay, because you're subtracting 3 from the number, so you need to start with the number. And then now all that's left to do is solve this. So I have a variable on both sides. I need to combine them. In order to do that, I have to move one of the variables. So I'm going to move the n. I'm going to subtract n. Okay, you're doing the opposite. So whatever you do to one side, you always want to do to the other. And n minus n is 0. 2n minus n, remember there's a 1 there, so 2 minus 1 is 1n. And I'm going to bring down the 7 and the negative 3. And then my last step to get n by itself is to move this 7. And I'm adding it, so to move it, I'm going to subtract it. So I'm going to do minus 7 on both sides. And I would get n equals negative 3 minus 7 is negative 10. So the number here that you're looking for is negative 10. And I can check that by plugging in negative 10 for n. So 2 times negative 10 plus 7 should be the same as negative 10 minus 3. So I know order of operations tells me to multiply first. 2 times negative 10 is negative 20. Negative 20 plus 7 is negative 13. And negative 10 minus 3 is also negative 13. So I know that my answer is correct. In letter B, it says a 10-foot board is to be cut into 2 pieces so that the length of the longer piece is 4 times the length of the shorter. Find the length of each piece. So here we have a picture, and it's a board, and it's showing us that we have it cut into 2 pieces. So there's a shorter piece, and then there's a longer piece. And if we look at the problem, it tells us that the longer piece is 4 times the length of the shorter. Well, I don't know what the shorter length is, so I'm just going to call that x. I do know that the longer piece is, and is, remember, means equals, longer is 4 times that length. So whatever the length of the shorter is, the longer is 4 times it. If I take both of those pieces, the shorter piece plus the longer piece, it should equal 10, which is the whole length of the board. So my equation is x plus 4x equals 10. And you can see from the drawing, it's going to be this piece from here to here plus this piece equals the whole thing. And now I'm going to solve. So to solve, I have my like terms on the same side of the equals. So I'm just going to combine x plus 4x gives me 5x. And I'm going to bring down the 10. And then I need to get the x by itself, so I'm multiplying by 5. So I'm going to divide by 5 to undo it. And 10 divided by 5 is 2. So the question says, find the length of each piece. So I found x, and x represents the shorter piece. So I know the shorter piece is 2 feet. To get the longer piece, I'm just going to substitute 2 for x. So 4 times 2 gives me 8. So the pieces are 2 feet and 8 feet. And if you add 2 plus 8, you get 10. So the lengths of the two pieces are 2 feet and 8 feet. Feel free to pause the video if you need to. And if you need to rewind and go back, that's okay. Okay, but just make sure you're understanding each problem because they'll help you later on. Okay, let's move to letter C. Letter C says, as of January 2017, the total number of Democrats and Republicans in the United States House of Representatives was 435. There were 47 more Republican representatives than Democratic. Find the number of representatives from each party. Okay, so we know what we're looking for. We're looking for how many Republicans and how many Democrats there were in the House of Representatives in 2017. So I'm looking for Democrats and I'm looking for Republicans. Okay, if I go back to the problem, it says the total number, total means to add. The total number of Democrats and Republicans was 435. So I know my equation, since it says total number, it's going to be equals 435. There were 47 more Republicans than Democratic. Do we know how many Democratic there were? No. So I'm going to call Democrats X, and for Republicans, it says there were 47 more Republicans than Democrats. So that would be X plus 47. So I've got my Democrats and Republicans, and together the total of them is 435. So my equation, I'm just going to put those two expressions together, and that's the equation that represents the number of Democrats and number of Republicans in the House of Representatives in 2017. So now we're going to solve. So I've got my two like terms on the same side, so you can just combine them when that happens. So I get 2x plus 47 equals 435. I need to get the x by itself, so I'm going to move the 47 over by subtracting it. So I get 2x equals 435 minus 447 comes out to 388. And then I'm going to divide by 2. And 388 divided by 2 is 194. So remember, I'm looking for the number of representatives from each party. So I have to go back. I found X, and X represents Democrats. So I know there were 194 Democrats. And now I need to figure out how many Republicans. So to get the number of Republicans, I know it's X plus 47. And I know X is 194. So I'm just going to do 194 plus 47. And if I add 194 plus 47, it comes out to 241. So I know there were 241 Republican representatives in 2017. Okay, below are some problems that you can try on your own, and A through C are very similar to the ones we just did, but I am going to work out letter D with you because it's a triangle problem and it involves some geometry which you may or may not remember. So feel free to pause the video and read letter D and then unpause it when you're ready to work it out. The measure of the second angle of a triangle is twice the measure of the smallest angle. The measure of the third angle of the triangle is 3 times the measure of the smallest angle. Find the measure of the angles. So here might be a good place to actually draw a triangle. And it doesn't really matter which angle is our smallest one, we're just going to pick, okay? So it tells us here, if you read the problem, it all relates to the smallest angle. They tell us that the second angle is twice the measure of the smallest, and the third angle is 3 times the measure of the smallest. The problem is I don't know what the smallest angle is. So that's our unknown. We're going to call that x. Okay, so that's going to be your smallest angle. And then we'll just call the other angles the second and the third angle. And we're going to write an expression. It says the second angle is twice the measure of the smallest. So remember, twice means multiply by 2. So it's just whatever the smallest is, in this case x, times 2. And then the third angle is 3 times the measure of the smallest. So the third is going to be 3x. One of the things you need to remember is that in a triangle, the sum of the angles is 180 degrees. So that's something that we need in order to answer this problem. So sum of angles in I'm going to use my little symbol for triangle. The sum of the angles in a triangle is 180 degrees. Okay, you may know that, but if you didn't, it'd be difficult to solve the problem. So I know that each of these angles, when I add them, it has to equal 180. So I'm just going to have x plus 2x plus 3x equals 180. And now I'm going to solve. So to solve, I'm going to combine all of my terms. All my like terms are on the same side. I get x plus 2x plus 3x. So that gives me 6x equals 180. And then I'm going to get the x by itself by dividing both sides by 6. And 180 divided by 6 is 30. Okay, so the question said find the measures of the angles. So I need to find all 3 angles. So I know the smallest angle is 30 degrees because that's x. Okay, and angles are measured in degrees, right? So that little circle symbol at the top. The second angle is twice the smallest. So 2 times 30 would be 60. And the third angle is 3 times the smallest, or 3 times 30, which is 90. And if I was to add those 3 angles, 30 plus 60 plus 90, you would get 180 degrees. Our last examples have to do with consecutive integers. So the word consecutive means in order. So 1, 2, and 3 are consecutive integers. Remember, an integer is just a signed whole number, like -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, and so on. If I'm talking about consecutive even and odd, they are even numbers in order and odd numbers in order. So 38, 40, and 42 would be consecutive even integers, and consecutive odds would be 57, 59, and 61. Okay, so now how do I use the algebra to represent that? So when I'm looking at just consecutive integers, if my first integer, no matter what it is x, think about how do you go from one integer to the next one? Like how do you go from 1 to 2? You take 1 and you add 1 to it, right? So whatever that first integer is, it's just x plus 1. To get to the next one, you will have had to have added 2 to your original, right? 1 plus 2 gives you 3. So you would get 1, 2, 3. So to represent it, we're just going to do x, x plus 1, and x plus 2. If you notice, the evens and odds are the same exact expressions, because if you take an even number, no matter what it is, you always have to add 2 to it to get to the next even number. Like an even number, that comes to mind is 6. If I want to go to the next even number, I have to add 2. 6 plus 2 is 8. If I want to go to the next even number, I have to take my original 6 and add 4. 6 plus 4 is 10. So 6, 8, 10. Okay, same works for odds. No matter what odd number you start with, to go to the next odd, you have to add 2, and then add 4, and then add 6, and so on. Consecutive integer problems come up quite frequently in other courses, so this is something that you want to, make sure you pay special attention to. All right, so feel free to pause this problem and read A to yourself a couple times. Make sure you understand what it's asking, and then you can unpause when you're ready to work it out with us. It says some states have a single area code for the entire state. 2 such states have area codes that are consecutive odd integers. If the sum of these integers is 1208, find the 2 area codes. So we're looking for the 2 area codes. Okay, so we've got 2 states. I'll call it state number 1 and state number 2. They tell us that their area codes are consecutive odd integers. So I don't know what the first odd integer is, so we're just going to call that x. How do I go to my next odd integer? I take whatever x is and I add 2 to it, right? So consecutive odd, your first integer is x, your next one is x plus 2. If it asked me for a third one, it would be x plus 4, okay, and so on. Same thing with consecutive even. The only one that's different is when they just say consecutive integers, because that just means integers in order. So in that case, you would just do x plus 1, x plus 2, and so on. So it tells us that the sum of these integers of the 2 states is 1208. Sum means to add. So that means I'm going to take my 2 expressions, I'm going to add them and set them equal to 1208. And then I'm going to solve. So to solve, I have x plus x, which is 2x plus 2 equals 1208. And to solve, I'm going to subtract 2. 1208 minus 2 is 1206. And then I'm going to divide by 2. And when I divide by 2, I get 603. So remember, I'm looking for the 2 area codes. So I know that the first state has an area code of 603. The second state would have an area code of 603 plus 2, which is 605. So now you can see your 2 area codes are odd consecutive integers. They're odd numbers that come one after the other. So we could say the 2 area codes are 603 and 605. Okay, Orlando, for instance, one of the area codes is 407. Those are neither consecutive, odd or even, right? They're not one after the other. But there are area codes that I've seen in Florida where it starts 321. So 321, those would be consecutive integers, right? 3, 2, and 1 are integers that are right next to each other. Okay, the last problem is for you all to try, and then in class we're going to look at formulas and problem solving. So please take your time with this. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me before class or during class. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.